On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
Hello, my name is Damon Friedman, co-founder and president of SOF Missions. As a 20-year veteran within Special Operations, I've gone through many challenges due to my military service and time in combat. We felt called to start SOF Missions to serve our fellow brothers and sisters in arms, focusing on suicide prevention and resiliency. Our mission at SOF Missions is to empower warriors to find purpose and be resilient. Since 2011, when we started the organization, almost 3 million men and women have deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the scars of war take a toll on their psychological, physical, social, and spiritual health. Many veterans feel a sense of hopelessness and a loss of purpose when they return to civilian life. They feel isolated and alone, unable to reconnect. And in the greatest of tragedies, over 20 veterans lose all hope and take their own lives. Our goal at SOF Missions is to provide veterans the tools and resources so that they don't become a statistic. We offer a unique approach to combating veteran suicide through a whole health, intradisciplinary model. The Be Resilient program is a 4-pillar methodology that addresses the areas of psychological, physical, social, and spiritual wellness. We provide care through 3 delivery methods: medical clinics, retreats, and educational training. Since we started back in 2011, we have been able to reach veterans in all 50 states and have served over 3,000 veterans through the Be Resilient program. Being resilient is a multifaceted and complex issue. We know that to find a lasting solution, we have to address the whole warrior. Many challenges cannot be solved by providing the treatments and modalities of just one component, but by tackling them all. Now, we've expanded our services to include law enforcement and first responders. Together, we can make a lasting impact in the lives of warriors across the nation. To learn more, visit our website at sofmissions.org.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation Show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. we always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the boys are back. The madness is over. The champs have been crowned. Now, we invite you to celebrate tackling new things as Lacey has snorkeled in the Gulf of America. We challenge you, yes you, right there, looking at the screen, listening in your ear pods. Get out of your comfort zone. Try new things. Be the best version of you. Everyone, put on your underwear. Pull on your favorite headgear. Reach up and pull down those shoulder straps and get ready for an epic ride with Cagney, with Lacey. Yes, he loves Hurt Locker. And get it, boys. It's that time again.
Good evening, Misfit Nation.
Good evening. How you doing,
I
Steven?
just love that intro. Every week, he throws something different in there.
Hey, for the record, everybody, I do not like the movie Hurt Locker. I did not enjoy it, but I did enjoy snorkeling in the ocean. I'd never done that before. It's a little different, but I did enjoy it.
You jumped out of your comfort zone.
I did. I jumped right in it.
That's good.
How you doing this week up in Jersey, Steven?
Doing good. Yeah. It's Tuesday, day off, relax, get a few things done, and meet my people here on the Misfit Nation.
Awesome. And I saw those badass chili dogs you had for lunch today. Those look good.
Oh yeah, they were good. They haven't come back out yet, but I'm waiting.
Hey, I understand. Hey, we got what promises to be a great show tonight, Steven. We was just talking with Patrick in the green room, you and I.
Yes.
He's a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. He's a military historian, which is pretty cool. Military history, I've always thought, is very neat. My dad loved it. And he's currently an instructor at the Army's Command General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. And he's serving as a fellow with the Simon Center for Ethical Leadership and Interagency Cooperation. And I'm excited to have him on here. He's been to Fort Campbell. He wasn't in 3rd Brigade, so, that makes him a cool guy already. So without any further ado, let's get him in here.
Good evening, Patrick.
Hey, good evening,
Patrick.
gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Really looking forward to it.
All right. Yeah, we are too. Hey, we gave just a little bit of what you do and what you're about. If you just want to fill in the gaps, start from wherever you want to start and bring us up to now.
Yeah, sure. So originally from Hawaii and joined the Army from there. Kind of had a bad run as a teenager, really getting in trouble. So the Army was my way out, really kind of saved my life in a way. And so joined the Army, became an 11 Bravo infantryman with the 101st at Fort Campbell, 2nd of the 502nd, so Strike Force.
Strike.
From there, I got out of the Army. I went to the National Guard for a little bit, and then went to ROTC in Las Vegas. So University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So it's a tough life to go to school in Vegas, but somebody has to do it, right?
Yes.
Did that, got my commission, ended up coming back into the Army. And then, that was in 2005. And then, been in the Army ever since, bouncing all over the place, had some really unique assignments besides the normal, operational tactical assignments at different echelons. I was able to do a interagency fellowship where I was assigned to a federal agency in DC for a year as a member of their staff. And then from there, I was able to shift over into the United States Senate. So I was an Army liaison to the U.S. Senate. Did that for a couple of years, and then did a couple other jobs, and then ended up here at Fort Leavenworth, teaching at the Command and General Staff College. Really fulfilling position right now, really enjoying it. And then while I did all that over the past years, I also wrote a book, which comes out on April 15th, so next week. And that's basically me right there in a nutshell.
All right. And folks that are listening, the book is Born from War, A Soldier's Quest to Understand Vietnam, Iraq, and the Generational Impact of Conflict. Look for it on April 15th. Looks like it's going to be a good one. Some of us got to.
I can't wait to take a peek at it later.
Yes. Yes. Like I was telling Stephen before we got started, sir, I'm a fan of military history. Now, I can't say that I've ever studied it or whatever, but I'm a big fan of it, and there's a lot of good stuff out there now. And I'm really looking forward to reading this book, and I'm sure it's going to be great.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, I sent you all that advanced copy, so hopefully you guys get a chance to read through that, and let me know if you got any questions on it or anything. But
yeah, sure enough, and I'm sure we've got your contact information. So if we've got any questions on it, we will surely ask.
Throw things right at you.
Yes, yes. So tonight, I think we're going to talk about leadership, aren't we? Was that what we were going to talk about? Or
sounds good to me.
All right. You've been a commander.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about some good leadership strategies, what works, what don't work, how you have to kind of finagle your way around different personalities in your units and whatever, and I guess I would ask, what would, I'm sure that you've had challenges from the platoon leader level to the company commander level. And what's some of the challenges that you think that you had to deal with that, let's say, company commanders in, say, the 80s or 90s didn't have to deal with?
Yeah, so I first joined the Army in the 101st in 1996. So it was a different Army then. And everybody always says, once you've been in the Army like 20 years, oh, it was so different in my day, but it's really true in this case. The Army of the 90s before 9/11 was a completely different Army than what it is now. It's always been a volunteer Army, but before 9/11, it was really underfunded, undertrained, understrength. People who were joining the Army were usually the people who really had nowhere else to go, kind of like me. So you had a different breed of people. You had people who were kind of used to hardship and I don't want to say complain so much, but it was just a very different breed of soldier. It was a different society too. We pulled soldiers from the society that we serve, and it was just completely different then. And so now when you have young soldiers coming in, they're raised on social media. They have just a different outlook on life. They have a different outlook on what leadership is and what a leader should be to them and how they should be as a follower. And so it's not good or bad. I don't want to sound off like I'm coming negative and hating on the younger generation right now, because I'm not. It's just different. Mm-hmm. So, as you move up to those ranks, like you just said, from platoon level to company and up above, as that's happening, time is moving forward, and society is as well changing and shifting. And then you had the wars on terror, which are shifting how people view service and so on. So you have to be able to adjust your leadership. When you're leading at that direct level, at that platoon level, it's a very different leadership style than when you're up here, training at Command and General Staff College to become a major or lieutenant colonel, becoming that field grade. You have to learn how to adjust that leadership style. And I will say today's younger generation, unlike my generation, when I first joined, and you all as well, when a leader asked us to do something or told us to do something, we didn't ask why. We just did it. We said, Roger, sir, Roger, sir, and we made it happen. Now, when you do that to a younger generation, they ask why. Why do I have to do that? Why am I doing this? Why are you making me do that? This. And so, if you just want to scream in their face because I said, it's not going to work. It's not going to be as effective.
No.
So yeah, so you have to learn. You have to learn how to explain, all right, this is why we're doing this. This is why we're moving in this direction, and so on. And obviously in the heat of combat, the younger generation understands when someone screams in your face, go left, go right, they get it. But when you're in a garrison environment, you've got to adjust your leadership style a little bit, explain why. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, because when I think back to some of the things when I was a private that my, lieutenants and sergeants made me do that had no common sense applied to them at all. It just, you were like, why am I doing this? But you couldn't ask that, right? It wasn't socially correct in that Army at that time. But now I know when I come up with a plan, I know that somebody's going to ask me, why did we do that? And so it makes me think through that plan a little bit better than I probably would have, 15 years ago. I would have just said, because I said so, just do it. But now I got to think and anticipate what they're going to ask me. And so I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's just a different thing.
Yes. And that's spoken like a man that knows what it's like to paint rocks.
Yeah, definitely know what it's like to sort rocks, paint them, and weed and all that stuff in between the rocks as you're painting them. Definitely do. We don't do that anymore in the Army, at least not from what I've seen.
Now you're talking, you're training new leaders and everything. The younger generation coming in, how many are actually staying on or going to do the time that you did, that Jake did, that my brother did? How many of them are just there for the 3 or 4 and they get out? How many are we actually keeping?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't know the exact percentages, but the Army now has adjusted its model. It used to be when you join, that carrot that was dangled in front of you was that 20-year retirement, right? So that's really what forced you to join and make you stay for that long, because you were chasing after that elusive 20-year letter. But now it's different. Now you have the blended retirement system, where you basically join and you get like a 401k for however many years you serve. And then you can stay, longer if you want, do 20, 25, whatever, or you can just do 3, 6, 8, whatever it is. So I don't know what the percentage is that's keeping in and people going for that long haul. But I will say that it's probably a good change, because had I just done 3 years in the Army, I would have walked away with a GI Bill, and that was really it, some training experiences. But now, as a young person, you walk away with like a 401k started for you, plus the GI Bill, plus a number of other benefits. So I think it's a good thing. I don't think we should be trying to sell the Army as, hey, this is a lifelong career when you join, or the military in general, because today's youth, that's not really what they're after. They are used to shifting jobs, shifting careers, doing 2 or 3 different careers, over a 10-year span. So now we've changed that model, which is, I think, more attractive to youth, that you can come in, do 3 years, get a bunch of benefits, get out for 5 years, come back in if you want. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually a really good thing that has adjusted to fit, what the youth want from careers today.
Okay. I've noticed that, a lot of them are, and just like before, they're coming in to get a skill. But I have noticed, and I don't know if it's just a thing, but a lot of officers, they'll make captain, have however many years they have in, and then just use that as a jumping off point to bigger and better things. Mm-hmm. So, and like I said, I don't know what the percentages are of, how many captains that are getting out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really the 2 points, in careers where we hemorrhage soldiers. One is between E4 and E5, because they do that initial tour and then we lose them. And then one is when they hit captain, they get that senior captain, and they've got college behind them. Some of them got a master's degree paid for. Some of them got some really great real world experience in whatever their position is. And then we hemorrhage them at captain. And we lose them. That's kind of the 2 points, if you will, where they exit the Army.
Yes. Well, hey, let's talk about this book a little bit. What was your? Well, wait, before we do that, we have a question here from I can't read that, but it's what inspired you to write Born from War, and how personal was that journey for you? Thank you for that question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thanks
Eliza
for asking
in
it.
M45.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Eliza. So what inspired me to write it is I've always been into military history, writing, and so on. So I've published a whole number of articles, but I've always wanted to write a book. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, my father rediscovered all these letters that he had written home from Vietnam, as well as this diary that he had kept during the war. And so once I saw that stuff, I was like, oh my God, this would make a really good book if I could take that year that he was in Vietnam. He only did 2 years. He did 1 year in Vietnam and then 1 year at Fort Benning. But just those 2 years, that influenced me so heavily as a kid to want to join the military because, as a child, you're always digging around through your parents' stuff and going through their closets and stuff when they're not around. And, I'd find old pieces of uniforms, old medals, old ribbons. He never talked about it, but it was always in the background that my father was a Vietnam combat veteran. And so, growing up with that influence, which then caused me to join the Army, finding all that stuff was awesome. And then so I was able to take all that and then, use my year in Iraq and like a compare and contrast between both of them. And I was able to track down a number of guys that he served with in Vietnam and interview them and, learn about their experience working with him in Vietnam. My dad was with the 82nd Airborne as an infantry officer. And then he was an ARVN advisor to the South Vietnamese Army as well. So yeah, it was a very, very personal journey being able to, my dad barely talked about it. So being able to talk to him about it now that I'm a grown man and have been through my own war and my own experiences in the Army, talking to him about it and then interviewing all these people that he knew, to include families of people that he knew that were killed during Vietnam, 50 plus years ago. So that it was really, really personal journey. And if you check out the book, it's got a lot of those conversations that I had with the guys he served with, those family members who still have that empty seat at the dinner table for 50 plus years. And Vietnam's almost kind of getting forgotten about. So yeah, really personal journey and really, really fascinating to dive back into that history of my father and the Vietnam War totally. And then bringing that forward, comparing it to our experiences in the global wars on terrorism.
And just to kind of go along with what you said, I didn't write a book, but me and my father, we always got along. But after I ended up joining the military, he actually opened up to me about his time in service. And I think that we were a lot closer for that. And that was kind of a good journey. And it's good that you were able to have those conversations with him and meet those folks.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating. And you're spot on. The way we've connected since starting the book, but even when I joined the Army, there was a connection that was, I guess, kickstarted that wasn't there before.
Yeah. He told me, he says, when I joined, he made sure that I did not go to the infantry. That's the only thing. And then when I ended up in the cavalry, I thought he was going to beat me to death.
Yeah. Well, that's the only, I could barely pass the ASVAB. So that was the only job available for me.
We got another question popped in here.
At Murphy White, what do you believe is the biggest legacy of the Vietnam War, and how did it shape national security for the rest of the 20th century?
Yeah, that's
question,
really
Murphy White.
Great question. The biggest legacy of the Vietnam War is what I call the ghost of the Vietnam War. And I write about this in the book. So, when I was working in Congress, anytime there was a national security discussion about, whatever, flash zone that's going on around the world, there would always be, military there, politicians there, and they'd be going back and forth. And somebody every single time would throw in, oh, so what do you guys want to do? Make this into, one more Vietnam? And that would always shut down the discussion right there. And it was that ghost of Vietnam that was always there throughout all national security conversations from the end of the war. Kissinger mentions that in his memoirs. McNamara, I always mispronounce his name. All of them said the same thing, that, Vietnam never left, that ghost, that ghoul of Vietnam, always influenced every single national security decision that was made up until GWOT. And that's really what the book is about. It's about, not just my personal family story, but also looks at that Ghost of Vietnam and how we forgot about some of those lessons anyway. And we just repeated them in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I've really found a lot of similarities there, which are really quite striking, which I teased out in the book. So I would say that's the biggest legacy of Vietnam. Some of the other things are the media, the relationship between society as a whole and the media, and then conflict. That's a huge thing that started in Vietnam, that negative relationship. And then protesting, that's another thing, anti-war protest. That's something that's left over from Vietnam, even though our wars, that shifted, and it was no longer, against the soldiers that went over and served like it was during Vietnam. So that's really the biggest legacies, I think. And then now, I think the national security discussions moving forward, now that GWAT is still present, but we're kind of winding down, is that instead of saying, "Oh, do you want to do another Vietnam?" It's now going to be, "Do you want to do another Iraq or Afghanistan?" So that's kind of an interesting shift.
Yeah, it is an interesting shift because they could have ended up exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of similarities there.
Yep.
And
and I bring all those out in the book. I found so many. It was really quite shocking, honestly.
I read a book while I was in Iraq, and it was about it talked about Vietnam, and it was learning to eat soup with a knife. And it talked about, fighting a counterinsurgency and things that we should have learned and didn't learn. And it was pretty much spot on.
Yeah, it's the counterinsurgency, the advising of local forces. I mean, all those different things that we tried in all three wars. It's really interesting. And one of the other big legacies, I think, of Vietnam and now Iraq and Afghanistan is the West American in particular's obsession with this limited war theory, where we think that we can go to a conflict and we can put the limited amount of resources into it, limited amount of effort, and expect the maximum amount of output. So we tried that in Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan. We had all volunteer army in GWAT. We put in just a limited amount of force. We didn't go total mobilization all the way trying to reach our objectives, but we just put enough effort in, hoping for this maximum output. And so that's really another, I think, legacy of Vietnam, and now the global wars on terror as well, is that we're still fixated on that. I think our national level leaders, if they decide that we're going to go to conflict, and if they decide that the objectives that we want to achieve that we can't achieve politically, and we want to extend that now into the military, and if we want to achieve that, we've decided that we're going to go use military force, then we have to go do that with all of our effort. And not just, limited army, limited input, some tomahawks from whatever Gulf of whatever. We've got to put everything behind it, very clearly defined objectives, and everybody goes and we get after it. So hopefully that'll be a lesson that's finally hit home after Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't have to do that, but yes, if they do it, I hope they put 100% into it.
Mm-hmm.
Another question. Look at this. We got them rolling in. Thanks, everybody, for the questions. This is from Mom's Fave 34. As a historian, what lessons from Vietnam and the global war on terrorism should the next generation never forget? Thank you for that question, Mom's Fave 34.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it goes kind of connects to the question that we just had. From a I guess tactical level, kind of gets after what I just mentioned about that total effort. So in Vietnam, we had units rotating in, we had individuals that would rotate in every year. So an individual soldier would rotate in, they join a unit, then they would rotate out. By the time they finally figured out what they were doing, they would rotate out. So in Iraq and Afghanistan, we decided, okay, that wasn't a good model. So what we're going to do is now rotate units in year by year. So in Vietnam, we fought the war one soldier at a time, 1 year at a time. Iraq and Afghanistan, we fought the war one unit, 1 year at a time. So I think, one of the biggest lessons, if you look back in history to earlier wars, World War II, World War I, and so on, again, goes back to that maximum effort. If we're going to decide to put America's sons and daughters in harm's way, then we've got to go with everything, everybody, and we go and we stay there until the job's done. And, me as a soldier, I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm advocating for, because it means I would be there a lot longer. But if everybody is there understanding we've got clearly defined objectives and every single thing that we are doing is aligned against them, then it makes sense for all of us to stay there until the job gets done. So that's probably one of the biggest lessons to take from it, on top of all the other ones that we just talked about.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Clearly defined, because to me personally, if a soldier, if you give your soldiers clearly defined objectives and give them the tools to achieve those objectives, then I think morale's better, and you'll have happier soldiers because they kind of they know what's going on and have what they need to accomplish it.
Yep, no, I agree.
Keep those questions coming, folks. Stephen, got a question for you in here.
Yeah, I see that.
You want to answer it?
Sure.
I'll pop it up there.
At Kelly Clean 9, Stephen, you said you work in retail. Do you believe the tariffs will hurt the U.S. or even the playing field in the world? You're going to see a little bit of a difference. You're going to see some prices go up if things are costing more to get in and the people we're purchasing from are charging us more. But it's not really going to, I really don't think it's going to hurt anybody. I think it's going to even out after a while and everything's going to calm down. You will see little spikes here and there, but it's not going to be that bad. I think that's a very good question.
Yeah, it was a real good question.
Something everybody's worried about. I really don't think it's going to cause the biggest problem in the world where everybody's going to start panicking.
Yeah, I think folks will panic over it, but I don't think it's, yeah, it is what it is. I'm not going to get into it.
I think the biggest panic is the fact that the news keeps throwing it at you. That he's doing this, he's doing it. And you're going to see a difference. It's not going to be that bad.
Give it a chance.
Little spikes here and there, and it'll even out after a while.
Give it a chance to work.
Yeah.
Got another one here. Fly Rail Drive. How do you teach ethical leadership in a world where lines are so often blurred?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So how do you even define ethics in conflict when you're in an armed conflict, trying to kill each other? Yeah, it's tough, right? And one of the differences between Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan is you saw how poor ethical decisions affected the way that the war played out in the media, which then affected how the population got behind the conflict, got behind the soldiers. So Vietnam, you saw My Lai. That was kind of the biggest one, but there was a whole number of other ones. But My Lai took like a year to come to fruition. Where you look as Iraq, Afghanistan, now when we make an ethical mistake, it instantly hits the airwaves. It's instantly all over social media and it's instantly in the news. The news grabs onto it, like Stephen just said. They want shock value, so the news grabs onto it. Pumps it into the news cycle, tries to get everybody all worked up. And so you look at like Abu Ghraib, the prison. That did more to alienate what Arab allies we had left than anything else you could possibly think of. So it's very important to kind of get back to the question of it's very important to teach our soldiers how to operate in that ethical space so they don't make those types of mistakes. So it really gets back to education, I think, is where it starts with. And that's education about the operational environment that they're about to go into. So if they're going to go into Iraq, again, we have to educate our soldiers more effectively of how that society functions. What do they see as right and wrong, and how do they, treat their families and women and men and relationships and all that types of stuff, so that we can better navigate in that space and make those ethical decisions that are right or wrong. But, the one thing we always try to teach everybody, has links back to the media is if you're about to make a decision, if you're about to do something, especially at that tactical level, that that it's going to hit, if it hits the media, it's going to be perceived very, very negatively, then you need to not do it.
Yes,
that's like the litmus test that you can apply to any ethical decision out there. That if someone's going to perceive this really bad, if it got out, if it was just a signal chat, a social media chat, if it was some pictures that we were trading on an email of prisoners getting stacked, all those types of things, then you pretty much know that you are doing the wrong thing. And I think as long as you can remember that equation, you will be okay.
Yes.
Well, I've noticed, talking about things like that, you see it more and more on TV shows, but I've seen it here in New Jersey, either New York City Police or Newark Police here in New Jersey, where people are jumping on cop cars and
Yeah.
doing things, and they're all standing there like this.
Yep.
So the cops are afraid to do anything.
Yep. Yeah.
You know,
They want them to
and
do something. Yeah.
this is what's causing the problem in the world. Everybody's
Yeah.
holding that in their hand, and they're saying, "You can't do that. I got a phone in my hand. Everybody's
Yeah.
watching."
And
You know,
that's going to be a threat. Once if we go back into especially a counterinsurgency environment, is exactly what's being done to police is going to be done to soldiers on the ground. People are going to have their
Yeah.
cell phones. They're going to try to bait them to get them to do something, and to get them to react so they can throw it into that social media cycle. So that's definitely a future threat.
Use it for recruiting videos.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for the enemy, absolutely.
That part of the world is definitely changing.
Why are you Cagney and Lacey?
All right. Snapperhead 18 has. Why are you Cagney and Lacey? Well, Snapperhead 18, I do not know how old you are, but there used to be a what was it in the 80s, Stephen?
An old detective show.
Old detective show. It was two women, and this is just kind of a joke between us because we was looking to, we didn't want to be Starsky and Hutch because, that was kind of too obvious. But so we picked Cagney and Lacey, and it's just kind of a joke, and
it works.
It works for us.
I get that question all the time. I have the sticker on my car. They're like, "Why Cagney and Lacey?" It was just a joke we ran with, and it worked. So
that's right. It's since both of us were teenagers around that time, so that was back in the day when we only got 3 channels on the TV.
Yeah.
Oh, so let's got one from Henry Jr. the fourth. How do you balance your military responsibilities with writing, teaching, and fatherhood? That's a good question. Thank you for that question, Henry.
Yeah, that's a great question, Henry. How do I balance that? Very carefully. No, I have a wonderful wife, and so she's on board with my writing hobby. So I think that's the first thing that I guess anybody needs if they have a hobby at all, is they have to have an understanding partner who's going to be willing to watch the baby, give you some time to do it, as long as it's reasonable, obviously. So that's, I think, the first thing is you need somebody who's going to support you in your hobby. And I think people having their individual hobby is important. My wife has things she likes to do that I like to give her time for, and things I like to do is writing. So that's one way, is having an understanding with your spouse or your partner to give you that time. And then the second thing is, obviously you have your military duties. So it's all really about planning. You obviously have your calendar of when you're going to be gone, things like that. And so you got to work around that. But the way to get after writing, the way I do it, is using skeletons. And so what I do is I invest time up front, and because I write nonfiction, I have quotes and data and sources that I'm using. So once I'm able to pull that out and I put it onto a skeleton of how I want to arrange it in that piece, whether it's an article or a book chapter, and once that's built, I can now write anywhere. So if I'm going TDY, I'm sitting at the airport, I have the skeleton already on my computer. I can just pop my computer open and write. If I get in early to work, and I'm there maybe at like 7, and they don't have to really start working till 8, I've got half an hour. Maybe I'll just write a couple paragraphs because I've already got, a skeleton built. And so that's kind of how I do it, is I have a understanding partner that supports me. I really plan well between my work and my personal life to figure out when I can write. And then the third thing is be prepared to write when opportunities present themselves. So having that skeleton already built so that any downtime that I have, I'm sitting at the airport, sitting in a dental chair, waiting to see the dentist, whatever, boop, pop the computer open, and I can write a couple paragraphs. And you'd be surprised if you write a paragraph 2 a day, you'll have a chapter by the end of the week. And then, next week you just clean it up, and before you know it, you got a book.
All right. Yeah.
Are you as good at with juggling?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Juggle? Okay.
Yeah, and and I think you have to understand that there's going to be ebbs and flows. So you're not going to be able to give equal attention to all of it at the same time. There's going to be some times where your kids demand more attention, your work demands more attention. Maybe you got to stop writing for a couple months. So you kind of got to understand and know that it's okay to stop writing for a couple months. Some people stop and they never are able to start again. Just know that it's okay to take a pause for a month, 2 months if you need it to catch up on everything else. I think that's how I do it.
All right. And got another one in here. Old Abe Always 101. He's also a Strike Alumni. And how do you feel about your time in the Deuce, and how did it shape you for the rest of your journey in the Army?
Yeah, Strike Force,
Thank you, old Abe.
Yeah, Strike Force. So yeah, you know, if you start your military career as an infantry soldier, and you know, I'm not hating on any other MOSs, but if you start your military career as an infantry soldier, you know, you do that for 3 years, especially in a unit like the 101st or the 82nd, something like that, a little more high-paced unit, then you can do anything in the Army, because it builds you that solid base, that solid understanding of how the Army fights. Not just how the Army fights, but how the Army does everything. Because the Army is designed, especially now, around preparing for large-scale combat operations. And the way we get after that is, yeah, you have special forces, you have things like that, but really the unit of action is that fire team, if you will, in those maneuver type units, 82nd, 101st, 10th Mountain, so on. So if you can understand, you know, how to function in a fire team, how to be a team leader in that, and then, you know, how they're supplied, how they're maintained, how they maneuver, how they fight, how they interact with the squad, and how that squad does that with the company, and then with the battalion, and so on. Once you build that basic understanding from your time on the line like that, you could do anything after that, because now you understand basically who's the end user of everything that's going on in the Army, is that infantry fire team. If you break it down to an easy to understand way like that. And so now when you become a senior person and you're working in the Pentagon, doing whatever, force modernization, doing the PPBE cycle, the budgeting cycle, all that stuff. Now all that stuff makes sense because you have that basic understanding of how the Army runs. So I always tell young people, you know, if you want to make a career out of the Army, then start in combat arms so that you can, you know, get that 3 years, get that understanding out of your way. Then you can go, you know, into computers or go do whatever else you want to do to get that skill. So yeah, it served me tremendously. I would not have changed it for anything. It really made me into the person I am today, the man and the officer that I am today. So thanks for that question.
And I always told my soldiers and tell, you know, anybody, I don't care what your job is in the military. If you are not an infantryman, your job is to support the infantryman. That's period. That's it. I don't care. And I will, that's a thought that I will take to my grave, because that is your job.
Yep. No, I agree 100%.
All right, Jake, we got a question for you, then we got another question for Pat. We'll go to you first, Jake.
Okay.
At Movie Guy 43, Lacey, you say you are not a fan of Hurt Locker. What is your favorite movie then?
Actually, I've got two favorite movies that that I will watch anytime they're on, or I will put them in and play them. It is Monty Python, The Holy Grail. And I don't know why, but Kelly's Heroes. I love that movie. That, you know, Oddball has got to be my favorite character in that movie. But yeah, I love that movie. Thank you for that question.
All right. Now, at way back, Jim, Pat, if you could talk to 13-year-old you, what would you tell yourself to do or not to do in the future? Thank you. Way back, Jim.
Geez. Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'd probably choke my 13-year-old self out. I think what I would tell myself, you know, not to do is, I guess, or maybe to do is, you know, learn how to stand on your own 2 feet, how to not have to feel like you've got to be accepted by a crowd or join a crowd, a bad crowd like I did in my case. They're not cool. You may think they're cool, but they're not. You know, they're going to lead you down to a path that you could, you know. I write about it in the book. You know, I have this reoccurring nightmare where I wake up and I wake up in a jail cell, and that everything that I've done in my life, you know, in the past 20 odd years in the Army is all a dream, and I've really actually been in prison since then. So, you know, I think I would tell my 13-year-old self, you know, stand on your own 2 feet, understand, you know, negative influences on your life, and that people or peer pressure, things that you think are cool are not really cool. You know, think about the impact of decisions that you're about to make. and so on. So I think that would probably be what I would say to him.
After you smack him around.
Yeah.
After you smack him around a little bit. Hey,
yeah.
Wake up, dumbass.
I think 13, we all started that little trend.
Yeah.
Doing things, hanging out, and changing things. Yes.
Yep.
Oh, I know. I got a smack in the head and was told, boy, we're not living life like this. And so, Roger that, Dad. Got one from Sally Garterbelt 9. What is one leadership trait you believe every young officer should develop early?
I think that's a great question. So I think a leadership trait that every leader should really develop early is what I call the 3 H's. Have you guys heard of the 3 H's?
I have not.
No. Okay. It's basically when someone, so if you're in a leadership position, military or in a civilian, and somebody comes and brings you something, they bring you a problem, they bring you a complaint, they bring whatever it is. You as a leader have to be able to understand, why are they bringing you this? So, and that's the 3 H's. So do you want to be hugged? Do you want to be heard? Or do you want to be helped? Like, you got to be able to put it in one of those buckets, and if you read it wrong, then you get a whole different response when you're dealing with that person. And so, obviously you're not going to hug your subordinates if you're in the military, but there's some compassion there, right? Like, are you bringing something to me because you want me to show you some compassion for whatever reason, whatever it is? And can I, so do you want to be hugged? Or do you just want to be heard? You just want to bitch about something and you want me to say, hey, I totally get what you're saying. I totally understand. I'm listening to you. I'm hearing you. Some people just want to be heard, right? And then do you want to be helped? Is the third one. So are you bringing this to me because you want me to do something? Do you want me to help you, or you just want to be heard? Because if you mix those up, right? Someone brings you something and they just want to be heard, and you're like, oh, I'm going to help you. Let's go. And I'm going to go do this and fix this for you. And that's not what they wanted. The whole thing backfires. So I think that's a skill that, every leader, military or not, needs to develop right away, is understanding those 3 H's. Do you want to be hugged, helped, or heard?
I like that.
Yeah.
And Mr. Executive,
I worked at a big box store over 30 years ago, and I used to work with the bosses opening stores and stuff, and they'd ask me to fix things, and I always give them the SOP. Do you want standard operating procedure, suggested operating procedure, or Stevens operating procedure? How do you want it worked? And that's how I did the job for them.
Yeah.
Do you want it standard? Do you want suggested? Do you want it my way? Because my way works better than half of them sometimes,
And hey, Mr. Executive Producer, I know you're listening. You heard that word compassion in there, right? You heard that word. So
give him a hug.
Right along with empathy. Okay. Oh, hey, Patrick, we've run through about 47 minutes already.
Nice.
So, we're going to start to wind things down here. I'm going to tell everybody, folks, the book is Born from War, A Soldier's Quest to Understand Vietnam, Iraq, and the Generational Impact of Conflict. Looking forward to getting my nose in it. And I got to be truthful with you, sir. I'll scan over the book. I'm not one of these folks that can read anything on a Kindle or a laptop.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
I got to have a book.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those things. But if somebody wants to contact you, how do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I have a website. I have an author's page. It's just patnaughton.com. So PATN as in November, AUGHTON.com. Excuse me. On there, it's got where you can contact me. It's also got links to where you can buy the book. It's through Casemate Publishers. But it's also available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, all the usual places. And like you said, it's also available as an ebook, if that's your thing. If not, you can order hard copy for sure. But yeah, through that website, that's the best way to get a hold of me, patnaughton.com. I love hearing from people and talking about history and all those types of things. And I hope, people find an interest in the book. It's not just another war book with war stories. It has that in it if you want it. But it's also got, the human experience of generational impacts of conflict and how that impacts families and so on. It's got that. It's got, national strategic historical stuff from a bigger perspective, if that's your interest as well. So it's really got something for everybody. At least I hope that it does. And I hope that people enjoy reading it and, just reflecting on those wars, Vietnam and then the global wars on terrorism, which are winding down now, which I hope will not become forgotten, like how Vietnam and Korea are on their way to being.
Well, us that fought it got to get out there and tell our story.
Absolutely. Got
to get out there and do that. Now for you, is there after you're finished up there, is there a brigade command on the horizon anywhere?
Yeah. I don't know. I have so much enlisted time that, I'm, almost a decade behind my peers in age. So I've been in so long already that we're actually considering retirement. Starting as a buck private, working our way up to lieutenant colonel is success enough, I think.
Hey, that's so great success.
Yeah, we might retire. Success. We haven't decided yet, but most likely it's retirement, but we'll see.
All right. Well, best of luck to you in whatever, that's an awesome career. That's pretty amazing, especially, starting off where you did, talking about the troubles you had when you were a kid and everything. That's an awesome career. Okay. Now we got some questions for you. Actually, we got one question for you. We do this of every guest that's on here. What are 3 non-negotiables every day that you have to do?
Yeah. Well, PT. So got to work out.
Got to do PT.
That's number 1. Number 2 is I got to drink my green smoothie in the morning. So I don't drink coffee. So I got to drink my health shake in the morning. That's number 2. And then number 3 is I've got to exercise my mind in some way. So whether it's looking up some random historical fact and not consuming news. So, CNN, Fox News, whatever. I'll look at that just to see what's going on in the world, but not get sucked into that, but actually get sucked into something positive that I can learn from surfing on the internet. So those are kind of the 3 non-negotiable outside of, hugging my son and those type of things.
Got that. Well, Pat, we really enjoyed the chat this evening. Misfit Nation, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you all for having me.
Questions, great conversation.
Yes.
This is really good. Thank you, Patrick.
And I got one more thing, just like it says in the opening, Misfit Nation, if you're out there, you're feeling the darkness, dial 988, take option 1. And if you don't get what you need there, drop us an email. I'll send you my phone number. You can call me. I'll listen. And any of us will. Any of us, because we want you here tomorrow. And one more thing, since I don't get to see her tonight, I want to tell Mrs. Holland hi, and I love you. Miss you, honey. And I'll see you Thursday. But
you never say that to me.
You know I love you, Stephen. All right. Well, folks, it's been a great evening. I hope everybody has a good rest of the week, and we'll be back on. Well, Rich will be back on Thursday, and Misfit Nation, we love you. Thank you for hanging out with us. Pat, if you want to hang out in the green room for just a couple minutes.
Sure. No, appreciate it.
We will see y'all next week. Peace.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Pat.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Got a question about your VA benefits, healthcare, or eligibility? Go to va.gov, where you can access a new interactive chatbot to ask questions 24/7. One can still browse va.gov for information, but you can now ask specific questions to the chatbot, like what's the PACT Act? How do I apply for disability benefits? What's my claim status? You can access the new feature through va.gov's Contact Us page. Then click on the Start Chat button. The chatbot will continue to improve veterans' access to information about the benefits and services they've earned. This is one way VA is offering seamless and secure access to its online resources.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.